Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to another Into the Darkness franchise discussion. And this time it's for a franchise I really love that, is a franchise that I don't think gets talked about a lot. It's very underrated, but it's a fantastic franchise. And what a perfect time to talk about this franchise, because it is Taste the Blood, the month of the vampire, here on the entertainment headquarters. And to talk about this franchise, we have two amazing guests. My co-host normally, Mr. DJ Anubis from the Metal Tavern Radio.
Hey all, thank you for having me.
Yeah. And from Anthony Jordan Movie and Gaming, Mr. Anthony Jordan.
Hello.
Yes.
Drinking from the Bloodstone.
The Bloodstone, yes. And speaking of the Bloodstone, we're here to talk about this particular franchise, Subspecies. So, a really awesome, underrated kind of, I guess, a franchise made by Full Moon Studios, which not many people talk about. They're very much a low budget studio, but they can come out with some pretty decent stuff. So we're also going to be joined today by Mr. Tony of the Dead, but he's under the weather. But don't you worry, at the end of this, I do have his rankings for all of the films that we're about to talk about. So first and foremost, Mr. DJ Anubis, can you remember the first time you had ever heard or were introduced to Subspecies?
It was definitely in the 90s. I think the series had already started before I even really started watching them, but probably about 95 or 96. Sci-Fi Channel or something like that had started doing runs of playing these movies, and I started checking them out and enjoying them. But then probably around in the 2000s when streaming started, you started finding all these apps that you can go through, even before Shudder and all that, and before Tubi, they would still have like people putting up their own recordings of these films. And so I kind of started going and watching them, and then I started like, these are actually really pretty good. Like, they're not, I mean, I've seen a lot of full moon features, some of them are pretty corny, but this is a series where it looks like they really took it somewhat serious in the approach to it, so it was really enjoyable.
Yeah. Anthony Jordan.
Well, I didn't know about the series till last month when you said it was going to be the next franchise review. It did kind of intrigue me when I heard Full Moon, because I'm like, well, Full Moon, they make low budget stuff, but when they try, they actually try, so there's potential. And I looked up some images, and the images of the main vampire, Radu, I just found striking. It was a great look, and I started watching. I'm like, you know what, these are actually, for what they are, pretty good. Great scenery, great villain. The story may not be the best, but there's still a pretty good time.
Yeah, and speaking of these movies, obviously they're based on, a particular vampire family based in Romania, and obviously, as you all know, last month, or should I say the beginning of this month, I went to Romania and, for a mini break, and had a fantastic time. And obviously I went to Bucharest, and a lot of the plots of these movies take part in Bucharest. And when I was looking at some of the scenes of these movies, I could see some landscapes and some even streets where they were running down I could recognize. So they were definitely on location. And I think that's what makes these films feel so authentic, is the location that actually were all filmed in Romania, which adds to the beauty of these movies. But let's crack on with the first movie, and we're going to kind of do these in, the right order, not as they were released, but as, in the right order, because as you know, in 2023, many years since the last movie came out, which was in 1998. Bad Moon Studios, I'm thinking of werewolves. Yeah, so, they decided, Full Moon Studios decided to do what they were calling something like their Terrifying 10 project, where they were going to do 10 films. I don't know if it was for like an anniversary or whatever the reason was behind it for, but they decided to go ahead and make a new entry in the Subspecies franchise as a prequel movie. And, this was, I guess, the first entry in their new Terrifying 10 series. I think they're also doing new Puppet Master movies as well as a part of this project. So even though this is called Subspecies 5, Blood Rise, it is the prequel to the first 4 movies and the spin-off. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the franchise in general. So I'll quickly just give off a little bit of information and then we'll crack on with the plot. So Subspecies is an American direct-to-video horror film series produced by Full Moon Studios and Castle Film Studios. The series ran from 1991 to 2023 and follows the exploit of the undead Radu Vladislas, portrayed by Anders Hove, and his efforts to turn Michelle Morgan into his fledgling. A spin-off film, Vampire Journals, was released in 1997, which featured characters that would go on to appear in the 4th installment. Ted Nicolaou wrote and directed all 6 films, including the spin-off. So a bit of background information, and also the series was shot on location in Romania, utilising stop motion and rod puppet techniques to achieve the look the director wanted for the creatures. The films have received generally mixed reviews, with critics citing vampire cliches as a downfall, but generally commending the director's choice in filming in Romania as well as the special effects. Well, the ones that are very critical of these films obviously just like the Marvel bullshit. Well, let's talk about the 5th installment. So where would you like to start? We'll start with Anthony Jordan.
Well, off the bat, I was new to the series, so before watching it, I had seen about the first 15 minutes or so of the original, and then you said part 5 was the prequel, so I decided to go back and start with that. And from the beginning, the way it was framed, I thought that the main character was the father from the beginning of the first movie, only to realize that no, we're actually getting the origin story of the villain Radu, and
yes,
I gotta say, it was a pretty interesting origin story. They made it tragic. They gave him some sympathy, and there's touches I like when he's been alive for a few centuries and he hears those musicians, and the music actually touches his heart for the first time since becoming a vampire. And when he turns them because he wants to be able to hear their music forever, he takes their ability to play music away from them in the process. So I thought it told an interesting, tragic story that kind of put the villain in a sympathetic light.
Yes, definitely. They definitely wanted to show his origin stories in a more sympathetic light, which they kind of have done quite often with villainous characters, where they want to show you that they weren't born villains, that they were corrupted and turned into villains, which is kind of the trope that they do with all kind of villains in the long run. But as you know, like you mentioned, Blood Rise begins with the birth of Radu, a moment after his mother, who I think named Cerise, is impaled by the Crusaders on the vampire slayers ordered of the Knights of Dragons. he's then taken as a baby, and what they do is they hide his vampirism in him. They kind of hide it from him, and then he becomes this knight himself of the Order of the Dragons, and then he goes forth to hunt all vampires, where he then becomes, he then comes across, I believe, Prince Valalas, who is basically his father, and he's there, and then he kind of manages to banish him, and then he finds Helena, and Helena, who was also played fantastically by the same cast member from the original, who, there's so many amazing cast members. So was it Debbie? What was the name of the actress? My mind went blank.
Helena? Denice Duff.
Denice Duff, yes. Denice Duff. Yeah, Denice Duff, yes.
Duff.
Yeah, Denice Duff, yeah. She plays... She really, for me, she's been, apart from obviously Anders Hove, she's been the main one throughout this entire franchise. Only thing I wish is that she was actually in the first one.
Yep.
Playing Michelle. Because
him being part of the Order of the Dragon, that's kind of a nice nod to actual Vlad Tepes.
Yeah. And with me going to Romania, Vlad Tepes actually had a younger brother called Radu as well, who was a coward. So they've kind of connected the dots there to the actual real history of Vlad the Impaler. So anyway, as you know, Helena, he meets her, she kind of seduces him, and he's trying to be an honourable knight, but he kind of caves, and she sires him and makes him a vampire, even though he's already been born a vampire. And as time goes by, like you mentioned, she is taken away from Prince Valalas, and when that happens, he's then on his own, and for centuries he's just wandering the lands. And after years, he finally meets two amateur musicians who he then say has to be his new fledglings. And then they end up meeting up with Helena, who, Helena, when she meets up with Helena, she's now like this vampire queen, and she's basically took the role of what Radu becomes in later films, which I thought was really interesting, how she then becomes like the seductive villain, this vampire.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some shots from the movie. So there's Anders Hove, as as he's is now. Then there you go, Prince Valalas with Helena and her son, who is Stefan, who later does become a part of the plot of the later movies. He looks absolutely terrifying, is Radu in these shots. He looks amazing, though, that he still looks amazing in the get-up as Radu and as Cove. There's Helena, who is in her domain, which is like the club, which is like that brothel area, which is basically becomes the brothel in, I think, Club Muse in Vampire Journals. I believe this is the big build-up and the start of that place. And of course, this is one of his fledglings later on, who becomes a loyal servant. So, Anubis, what do you think of the plot of the fifth movie, the prequel?
Love it. This is by far, it was such a surprise. It's by far the most mature of all the movies in terms of how they put it together. It's got a solid story. There's literally character arcs for a lot of different characters in here. Mm-hmm. Helena has one. Radu has one, Ariel, and I think her brother, it's either Stefan or Ash. I can't remember which one.
I think it's Ash.
Ash. They have an arc too. Ash is more. He reminds me of Jared Leto. I don't know why, but it just does. but just the character arcs that each one has, and so you don't have to go 3 hours to have it. They can create it within this world of like an hour and whatever minutes. And it's a great, like, I like the fact that it wasn't like, okay, we're just going to make Radu an older vampire and go off the last fourth one. They made it a prequel. So that idea that his age and how he's kind of disformed compared to other vampires makes more sense. He was already kind of older when he got turned. Yeah. So I love that concept. Like, that was whoever thought it up did a brilliant job with it, and I'm glad that Anders and Denice came back to do it, because it's the best one of the entire series.
Agree. But I like the fact that, you know, it gives you kind of, I love the ending of this, because obviously we can do spoilers if you want.
No, it's fine. It's been a year. And
you know, so obviously as the film progresses, obviously him and Elena, who she thinks she's sad, they then become enemies basically by the film's end, and it's basically her in the fledglings versus him, and then eventually he overcomes her and is able to kill Helena and basically take her place as basically the top vampire. And when that happens, she swears to him that she will be resurrected and she will torture him for the end of his days, which plays perfectly into the rest of the movies. Except the first one, because unfortunately Duff isn't in it. But if she had been, it would have been absolutely amazing. I really wish they would just remake the first one with Duff.
Yeah.
And just say it right.
We had the technology to superimpose her face on everything.
Just AI the fuck out of that. I know
it sounds bad because it does, you know, it takes away the work that the other actress put in. She wasn't bad, but
she wasn't. But you could tell
this was like this whole series is made for Duffy. It's like her baby. So,
and she's also done, I think, away from Subspecies. She's also, I believe, done other vampire projects in other films.
Well, she was just in The Exorcist with Doug Bradley for Jose Brendas. Yeah. So she was in that as a nun. So I love that she loves the horror genre. That's what's so great about her. She doesn't shy away from it at all.
Yeah, well, it's our bread and butter, and you know, if it works, it works. Why skip over it, you know? So, Anthony Jordan, your overall opinion of the fifth movie?
I really enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect from it, so I went in with no expectations and had a pretty good time. And like Anubis said, it's the most mature out of all of them. They put some thought into telling an actual serious story with this film, and it was appreciated.
I agree. I think personally, because obviously they didn't have a film since 1998, but this, you know, the Subspecies genre has become like a cult genre within the horror genre, like a cult, you know, film series that, you know, a lot of people might have had high expectations for, like the new one. Because I believe outside of Puppet Master, Subspecies is Full Moon's best franchise outside of the Puppet Masters. And there would have been a lot of pressure on them to deliver, especially knowing that they had Duff coming back and Hove's coming back. And I think the writer wanted to make a story that really kind of came full circle and basically added to what he had already created with the past movies, and I definitely think he succeeded with this one. So that is the fifth one.
So are we gonna rate them each time or just at the end?
Just rate them at the end. So that's my thoughts on Subspecies Blood Rise, but let's get back to the original. All the way from 1991, Subspecies. Now, since Anubis already mentioned he's seen these on like television and all this, I'll ask you, Anthony, what was your what did your overall thoughts? Like, what did you think of the story of the first one?
Well, while it was nothing spectacular, it was a good time. I like how they utilized their budgets. Like the stop motion and rod puppet effects were done really well. It had just good cinematography and eerie lighting. Like there are some scenes with just Radu off in the distance where he looks really ominous, really opposing, and you just know good's gonna come from messing with him. And another thing I really liked is this isn't necessarily a series where if the villain wins, it's doom and gloom to everyone. He gets what he wants, and outside of the people involved being negatively involved, like his actions aren't really affecting the rest of the world. So it's also a great self-contained threat.
Yeah, it's not like a outer-worldly threat. It's not like vampires wanting to conquer the world. He basically has his own agenda for where he's sitting at it in Romania. And, you know, that's all he cares about is basically his little domain that he wants to control. But for those that haven't watched the Subspecies movies, I'll just do a little bit. So Subspecies 1991 follows three college students, Maria, Michelle, and Lillian, as they begin a study on Romanian culture and superstition in the small town of Pragema. They are befriended by Stefan, a student studying nocturnal animals. It is revealed that the nearby castle Vladislas has been caught in a power struggle between vampire brothers Stefan and Radu. So that's what I loved about this. I loved the fact that you had like these bystanders that just arrived, and then you have the secret war between the two brothers that are struggling for control of basically the Vladislas, you know, heritage and law. And obviously, even though you did see Prince Vladislas in the prequel, where he looked more like a Nosferatu vampire, and you also see him get killed, which I think there is a little bit of a loophole, because you've seen him get killed, but then he does appear fully alive with a nice big hair, you know, head of hair there.
Angus.
Yes. And, you know, but we've seen how many times was Radu resurrected? You know,
Many
so
times.
the fact that the prince was resurrected and is sitting in his throne room at the beginning of this movie didn't really bother me, despite, you know, if I hadn't seen the other films and had just seen the prequel and this, I might have scratched my head. But the fact that we know that these vampires can be resurrected on, you know, a click of a finger, this didn't bother me at all. And this was when when we're first introduced to this really younger version of Radu, who I think looks phenomenal. He's a phenomenal looking vampire, and I love the long hands. So
yeah.
So what's your overall thought on the first movie, DJ Anubis?
I enjoy, Tony Anthony really hit everything on the head in terms of how Radu is kind of mostly in the background. It's a lot of shadow work. It's more meant to be like a creepy, straight horror. Like whereas like it seems like they just kind of went along not knowing how far the series would eventually go. So it's like they were kind of just planning for it to be probably just this one thing, and then it just kind of grew and grew and grew.
That's it.
But you can tell, like, as good as Tate did in the film, like, once Duffy came in, it just raised that character like tenfold to a whole other level. And so it's like, that's really the only thing that's holding this film back. If Laura Tate was more of one of the side characters, like I actually liked the blonde, the one blonde to her left, which is Irina Molivia, I think. I thought she did really, really well in the film.
Yeah, she's the one that gets tied up.
Yeah. And so I kind of liked her acting a little more than Tate, but you know, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, once Duffy entered into the equation, it kind of changed the whole dynamic of the entire series for me.
Oh, definitely. So this is Stefan in this movie, who is Radu's
Rick
half brother.
Springfield.
Yes. So just show some stills of this movie. I love that character as well. I thought he was great in this. You know, there's Radu and Stefan battling. And then you have the crone there who gets beheaded and gets transformed. And this is a great shot.
Yes. For many reasons.
Yes, and obviously this is where Michelle is being tied and is getting fed to Radu by basically his fledglings. And this is one of my all-time favourite shots, which happened right at the beginning of the movie. So right at the beginning of the movie, as you know, you were introduced to Prince Vladislas, who basically he's sitting there and he's saying to, you know, Radu that you cannot have the family heirlooms. You're not allowed, you know, the Vladislas fortune, which includes one particular item which plays a huge part from the first film right up to the final film. And we're talking about the Bloodstone.
Bloodstone.
Yes. And as you see the Bloodstone.
Anthony's got the updated version.
Yes.
Blood skull.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as you know, the very first beginning, you see this battle of wills between the father and Radu basically, he you know, the father hides the bloodstone from him, and then Radu decides to get the bloodstone. But how does he do it? Radu is kept in a cage. He decides to chop off his own fingers.
I do like that his fingers are that long for a reason.
Yeah, he gets his fingers chopped off, and after his fingers are chopped off, they start to transform and morph into these horrible little demons who basically...
Did anybody else get this vibe from when that happened, that it reminded me of Clash of the Titans with the scorpions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. They also look like the creatures out of, is it the Gate?
Yeah.
Is it the
Yep,
Gate?
the Gate.
And from what I understand, these creatures are the actual subspecies it refers to.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That's what they are. They are the actual subspecies, these little creatures. I thought I had an image of them, but I don't. But yeah, they are the little subspecies, but they form, and after they form... Oh, is this it? Yeah, this is it. They are the little subspecies. So that is what the film's title is about. So they form, and after they are formed, this is my favourite scene. They release Radu from the cage. One goes behind the mechanism of where the stone basically vault is, that's keeping the bloodstone, and then all of a sudden Radu then goes over to his father and kills him.
Yep.
And he kills him, and then after he kills him,
this part is one of the criticisms I'll give the film, because the way it's shot, it's like the father just stands by and lets it happen.
Yeah, that is true, but that overall first impact of Radu and how basically evil he can potentially be, really, I think, makes an impact for the rest of the movie. And then it's like a mixture of, I wouldn't say Dracula, but more so Nosferatu, where he's going after people that turn into fledglings and to control the domain of Romania and the Vladislas Empire, I guess. I also feel as if, because you have his backstory with the prequel now, he is extremely lonely. And a lot of this, I think, is built up loneliness, which plays a part in the second and the third one. But overall thoughts, Anthony, on the first film?
Not my favorite in the franchise, but it's a very solid first entry, and I can easily see how an entire franchise spawned from this. And one of my favorite things, and I think it's a line Stefan even mentions, and I'm paraphrasing how he explains it, but he basically says something to the effect of good and evil with vampires is really no different than good and evil with people, which is something I like. You don't see it much in vampire fiction, but I like the idea of good and evil vampires both being out there.
Yeah, true. Anubis?
Yeah, I'm with Anthony on this. Like, it's not my favorite of the series, but it's a good entry at the time that it was made. But obviously, that one hiccup with just the change of the actress, it's like, unfortunately, that's the way it was made. But decent film all the way around. Anyway, none of these films are bad at all. So, like, I don't have any gripes really, other than the fact that Duffy should have been there from the beginning. But
Yes.
it is what it is. You just kind of roll with it.
Yes, very true. And I agree with everything you said before, Anubis, that I think after the success of the first one, that they knew they had a winner on their hands, and I think they automatically decided we could franchise this out and make it a series. So I think if you can tell with where each movie ends from the first to now, that they are set up to be a continuing story. But I don't know if they knew how far they wanted the story to go.
Correct.
So the second film in the series is this one, which is Bloodstone, Subspecies Bloodstone, which picks up basically right after the end of the first Subspecies, where there's been this intense battle between Stefan, the brother, Michelle, and Radu is defeated and has his head basically chopped off. And Stefan and Michelle, who are now madly in love, decide to sleep in one of the crypts in the castle, assuming that all is well. So, that's where the last one ended. And then straight away, this one starts right at the beginning of the end of the first one, where Subspecies, picks up directly after the event of the first film with Radu's minions, the Subspecies reattaching Radu's head and removing the stake from his heart. Radu finds Stefan and Michelle sleeping and immediately kills Stefan, which I thought I didn't know if I enjoyed the fact that they took away that character, since they had built him up so much in the first one, but it also left room for them to develop the Michelle character.
Yeah.
So the one thing I will say I absolutely loved about the beginning of this movie, just like with the first one, with the kill of Radu's father, Prince Vladislas, is the resurrection scene. Like, the resurrection scene was just amazing.
Yep.
And as the plot progresses, basically Michelle is now woken up. She's now actually been transformed into a vampire by Stefan Pratt in the first movie, because she obviously fell in love with him. And as the progresses, she's now woken up like in a daze, doesn't know what's going on. She's now a vampire, and then escapes and heads to Bucharest, the capital of Romania. And there she contacts her sister, Becky, I believe, who comes all the way from America to Romania to save her sister. And there's a few side characters along the way. You have you have this guy who is he's like from the embassy, the American embassy guy. You have the Romanian history guy. And they all are there to help solve the mystery of Michelle's disappearance in this, as she does get in contact with Michelle, she now starts telling them about the events of the first movie, vampires, the law of the Vladislas family, the Bloodstone, and it's hard to believe. Basically, everything's hard to believe, but it all comes together where things start to transpire, where they then start to believe in Michelle and the fact she's now been transformed into a vampire, and Radu is a real threat. So, what's your thoughts on the second one, DJ Anubis?
Definitely a step up from the first one. It does concentrate a little bit more on Michelle Morgan this time around, like her struggles to try to deal with the vampirism that's running through her. And of course, Radu trying to chase her down. But I did like it. It's still not quite up there with like the last two for me, but it's still pretty decent. And then, of course, we haven't really talked about Radu's mummy.
Yeah.
Played by Pamela Gordon. That's a whole like other thing with the witch. Like that's a very cool aspect of it all as well.
Yes, definitely. So yes, obviously, so what happens throughout the story, obviously after Michelle's contacted, Radu does make his presence known in Bucharest. He does travel all the way from Castle Vladislas to Bucharest, and when he does come to Bucharest, he does seek out help from none other than his mother, who is like this witch, like demon entity. Oh, wrong photo. Who is, but she's like a mum. She's basically like a mummy. She's like a rotten corpse, like witch mummy entity, and she is there to help Radu basically, and advises him what to do, and isn't really a fan of Michelle, and wants to basically have
she's almost got like this sixth sense of where we don't know at the time that this film is made, but it sort of plays into number 5 because I think she has a sense that she's like, this girl's going to be your downfall. You cannot turn her. You cannot bring her into your fold. Like the mother is continuously concerned about it's almost like a curse or, destiny that this girl's going to destroy Radu. That's like how she sees it. So it plays right into 5. With that one.
Yeah, so so the mother's like, you don't, because obviously he's lonely and has loneliness in his heart, and she's like, you're a vampire, get over it, stuff like this. She goes, and when he wants to find his fledgling and turn the fledgling into, and basically be like his mate, as you will, she's all against it. But he promises the mother the bloodstone and stuff like this, and that's where the plot really gets interesting. And that was the most important part for me, and the most interesting part was the relationship between Radu and his mother, because it was like the next chapter, and it was starting to get interesting and building up. And obviously, basically, if you also look at Radu's mother, it's like any mother-in-law. Some people don't get on with the mother-in-laws. So that's basically what I took from it as well. It's like the angry mother-in-law that hates her stepdaughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Anthony Jordan, what's your overall thought on the second film?
Well, I'm like Anubis. I thought it was a huge step up, and my favorite part about this one was Michelle coming to terms with the fact that she is a vampire and the rules of being a vampire. Like when she rents the hotel and just goes comatose during the day, and the maids think that they found her dead, and that's what brings the sister in. It's a very interesting character study. The mother that was a great addition to it, in just kind of a nice, like, I don't want to say minion, but a nice villainous foil to Radu, that where she's helping him, she also clearly has her own agenda. And just like you two have said, the change of the actress just elevated it. And knowing what we know about the prequel, it really gives more weight to his obsession with her.
Yeah, I know this is a different franchise, but I don't know why I found similarities to this with the Pumpkinhead franchise, because you have like the witch in the woods in the Pumpkinhead franchise who brings, people back to life for a vengeance. And I found like parallels with this, with Subspecies, that you've got Radu and he's got this witch-like entity mother, and she's like, she can have the ability to bring people back from the dead and stuff like that. But at the same time, she wants to basically, in her own way, by using Radu, control the Vladislas Empire. But my overall thought is with the second one. The second one is just, I don't know if it's my second favourite, but I love the fact that it deepened the story from the first one. And like you say, now that we've got the fifth one with the prequel, you can appreciate the second one more because it adds to the story and adds to the history of the whole, the Vladislas kind of timeline and history with all the characters. So I really enjoyed this one. But I think out of all of them, the next one's probably my favourite outside of the prequel. And that is Bloodlust, Subspecies 3. So at the end of Bloodstone, Michelle, and our sister's there. Our sister's now found her. Our sister's trying to rescue her. Once again, Radu gets his comeuppance, which is one thing that the Subspecies films don't shy away from. They always give the bad guy a good ending. So, the first one, he gets his head cut off. This one, how does he have? He's died that many times, I forgot how he dies in this one. How does he die in the second one?
I forget. It happens so often. I know the first one he got beheaded, and then
he got beheaded. The third one, going into the first one, he falls off the castle when the sun's coming up in flames. I think this one, he gets stabbed multiple times and dies. But anyway, Radu once again meets his end. Michelle's trying to leave the crypt with our sister Becky, but because she's now a
he got stabbed with an enchanted dagger, so that's how he died the second one.
She cannot follow her, and so she stays behind. But unknown to them, there was a scene earlier in the film where the mother's trying to fight off everyone in the crypt in a set of light and runs away in flames. The next thing you know, the mother is there, and the mother comes behind Michelle and kidnaps her and takes her back deep into the crypt. And that's where the screen goes black. And the next thing you know, the third film starts off exactly where that one ends, where the mother has tied Michelle to the side of like a catacomb, and the body of Radu's there, where she removes the sword. That was it. He was stabbed with a sword in the heart. So the sword is removed, or the ancient dagger is removed, and then she uses the blood of Michelle to resurrect him. So, and the whole part of the third one, I believe, takes place in Bucharest. So, what's your overall thought on the third one, Anthony?
was another solid entry. Why I think there are highs and lows in the franchise. I think there's a certain level of quality that is maintained. This one, granted, I'm probably like I have the most trouble remembering as of right now because I saw it right before a certain hurricane that'll remain nameless. So, understandably so, my memory of this one's a little fuzzier, but it had its good moments. Like, I like the whole that you had that police officer get a bigger part, that you had this sort of team come together, in that they just tried to add more characters and do more, but you kind of figure by this point, okay, it's a subspecies. Most of these characters are going to be pretty useless.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was another really entertaining ride. I wish my memory wasn't as fuzzy, but with what happened, it's understandable. So, still a pretty good movie.
Yes. DG Anubis.
Yeah, this one, the thing about 2 and 3, like you like this one a lot. 2 and 3 to me were kind of on the same level. They didn't necessarily blow me away, but they're still good, and they were a step up from the first one, but they're just kind of tied together. You can almost put these two movies together and it would still be fine. Like you wouldn't miss a beat, but they both deal with kind of similar issues there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a decent find. I mean, to me, like I said, once it gets to 4 and 5, that's when you really start upping the ante and different things are being added into it some more. And so I enjoyed it. Obviously, I enjoyed the entire series, but these two for the second and third one are just more story lore and just continuing what's going on with Michelle and everything like that. So nothing stands out totally to me, but it's still very good.
Thing I liked about the third one is that obviously the development of the relationship between the mother and Radu, where it really starts to unravel. And obviously he does end up killing his mother because there's like a tug of war within him wanting to be loved by Michelle, but also to appease his mother. And in the end, he sacrifices his mother, and then Michelle rejects him. And I love the kind of storyline with Michelle where she's now starting to come into her own as a vampire and actually accept that she's a vampire. So for me, even though it's probably on the level of the second one, I like the fact that it's a more development of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I enjoyed about it more. Not maybe the fact that it's better than the second one, but on the same level, but it's the character development with the main characters. And that's, for me, what makes this great. But that's that one. And then, obviously, at the end of this one, Radu meets a horrendous death again because they just love to torture this vampire.
His best death in the franchise.
Yes, I agree. So basically, he's chasing after I was going to say Helena there, but that's her name in the fifth one. Goes chasing after Michelle, the sister Becky, and the guy from the embassy basically on the top of the roof of the castle, which was Bran Castle where I actually visited. So it felt really weird being there. I'm just glad I never fell off the roof. So it was weird that some of the outer shots of the buildings and that were things I've actually visited and I've seen with my own eyes, which always gives you a more deeper meaning when you watch films. But obviously the ending of this one, Radu's on the roof. He's chasing after Michelle because she has the Bloodstone. And because she's got the Bloodstone, he says, I'll let you go, just give us the Bloodstone. And then basically he's chasing after them. She throws the Bloodstone off the roof of the actual castle. He goes chasing after it, and because the sun's rising, he gets satellite and himself falls off the top of the castle in a heap of flames into trees, and he is then ensnared on the trees and is all spiked through and impaled on the trees, which was quite a gruesome death. And then Elena Michelle, Becky. I'm gonna keep saying Helena, or for whatever reason because of the damn fifth one. But Michelle, the guy, and Becky end up getting in a car. They put on a body bag so she's away from the sun, and it ends off there. And that's where you think this is potentially the last in the series, which I believe probably was going to be the last in the series, how it ended, because it would have been a perfect death for Radu. But then they had to, in the middle of deciding all of that, whether it was going to be the final in this series, they decided to hire us a curveball and do a spin-off. And the spin-off is called Vampire Journals, which basically, you've got Vampire Diaries, you've got Twilight. It does have a similar feel, and this could have been like, an inspiration for those films and shows. So I know you said you didn't mind this one, did you, Anthony?
Yeah, I liked it. It was an interesting take. I thought it definitely felt more like a pilot for a TV series than a movie, but that's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. So the basic premise of this, it's about, a young vampire. You do have, I think it's Ash the vampire, Jeremiah and Ash. So this is, that's Ash. This is Jeremiah. And it's basically a battle between them about basically controlling Bucharest in the vampire in the club Muse, and it's about their battle where they know, there's a premonition where Ash knows he's going to defeat Jeremiah, and it's a spin-off because it's linked, because it's in Bucharest, and it's about the vampires that dwell within the city of Bucharest. And it also features Dr. The guy that becomes the Doctor in the fourth film, Nicolaou. Dr. Nicolaou also makes an appearance in this, and that is also another connection. And also, I believe another connection is that the vampire Ash is another fledgling of Radu.
Yeah, I think that's the one that's the oldest version of the young one of the brother of the fifth one.
Yes. So that is how it's connected. So this character here, which is Ash, he is a fledgling of Radu. And you have Dr. Lazarou, who also has a bigger impact in the fourth Subspecies movie. So that's its connections. So overall, what's your opinion, Doctor? I was going to say Dr. Anubis, DJ Anubis. What is your overall opinion?
I do really like this one a lot. I love it. Plays around with the idea of them trying to become daywalkers through the Doctor, who's been dabbling around. Like through early part of the film, I didn't even know he was a vampire until like midway through when he actually starts feeding and stuff. So I was like, holy shit, okay. So it adds a new dynamic to the storyline. Then you have, of course, Ash and his fledgling Serena, who's very manipulative between Radu and Ash, and she's kind of got her own agenda at hand here. So, but I love the fact that when Radu comes in and sees Ash for the first time in centuries, and he's like, well, yeah, I'll go ahead and take your fledgling for some enjoyment and entertainment. Ash is kind of like, fuck.
Yeah, that is in the next movie we're about to talk about. So, did you watch Vampire Journals as well?
I did not. I have not seen it before. Nope.
Yeah. So I liked it because I like how it did open up the world of the Subspecies franchise, and I'm surprised that they didn't continue with it, or at least work on it. Do another spin-off series from Subspecies, which they potentially could in the future. Because at the end of Subspecies, the vampire Ash and Serena, I don't believe, die. I believe you just see them scour away as his shadows across down the catacombs.
Mhm.
So I'm surprised that they didn't do another spin-off with those two characters. Is like a battle between Ash and Serena. You could have
Yeah.
made Serena full on like the villainess that she kind of was, and Ash could have been this noble vampire.
What sucks like about the fifth one is that, you know, Ariel ends up dying, sacrificing herself basically for Radu, and it's like, damn, I really liked her. I wanted to see another film with her. Because spun off something with her and Ash, and I've been pretty happy, but
Yeah.
that didn't work.
Yeah, you could have even done a thing where they could have brought the same actress back as an ancestor of that character, like what they've done with Helena and Michelle.
True.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll move on to the final movie within the franchise, which is Bloodstorm. Now, I'm just gonna let you like this one a lot, don't you, JJ Anubis?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you talk about this one because I know it's probably your second favorite. I've got a feeling it's your second favorite.
Second favorite, yeah. So, you know, Michelle is found by a woman named Anna who works for the professor Nicolaou, and as she's looking at, I guess I think it's like a car accident or something, and so
it happens off screen basically.
Yeah.
I think
she's like a forensics person or something. So she goes to accidents and, you know, finds out what happened and who's alive, who's not. But she discovers that Michelle is alive, but that when she's exposed to the sunlight, she freaks the fuck out. So she's like, oh shit. So she covers her up and takes her to the doctor and explains what happened. So he takes a very big interest in this because obviously Michelle is telling them the story about how she's a vampire and you can see the marks on her, and so he's got like this big interest into, for whatever reason, to try to help her. He says he can help her, and that's part of the movie there where he's spending time where he knows about the myth about the bloodstone, so he's very interested in that. And then on the other half of this, we have Radu, who's coming to chase down Michelle still, and that's when he's meeting up with his fledgling Ash and his fledgling Serena, and he's back at the castle. And it's funny because he's like, "Wow, it looks like, you know, we've made a lot of money since I've been gone." And so I couldn't help but think of like Austin Powers, like, you know, it's like, well, we have a lot of Starbucks and we are getting a lot of money. You know, but Ash is like, yeah, we're doing quite well. But then it's cool, as Radu always still prefers like his dark, grungy crypts. That's where he wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I'll take the seventh wing. He's like, well, that's been run down. He's like, that's where I'm going. That's my place. And he's like, okay. You know, he doesn't
That's
live.
one
like
thing that annoyed me about Ash, because he was basically a pussy in this.
Yeah.
Where the last one he kind of had a bit of fight in him, where this one, it's like he's totally, you know, because I guess he is probably fighting Radu. He's the sire who sired him. So I kind of get it, but at the same time, I thought he would have like tried to fight him a little bit more. He kind of let Serena do all the work for him.
Well, that might be a cool thing that they do another Vampire Journal, because then you could take the young actor who played Ash, and maybe the reason for that is because he knows through word of mouth that his sister has passed away and doesn't know whether or not Radu did it or somebody else. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's part of the fear factor, is he's respecting the master, because I think it was Helena initially took interest in him towards the end of the fifth. So like Ariel, like surprising me, went right back to Radu. Like she hated Radu for so long. And it's like now she's like seeing that Helena's not really much better. You know, so
that was a good twist in the fifth one where she hated Radu, who, like I say, was more the sympathetic of the vampire. That's what I loved about the fifth one. to the rest of the series, because with the fifth one, Radu was, like Anthony said, such a sympathetic character. He basically was seduced and was, sired, and became a fledgling to, he was already born a vampire, but Helena didn't know that, and she thought she had sired him. But she became this evil vampire queen, where, of course, when she died, roles reversed, where he became the evil guest vampire king. Michelle then became the sympathetic heroine who's been turned into a vampire against her own will. Well, wasn't against her own will, because she'd done it for love, but now he's gone. She's now stuck in this tug of war with fighting animalistic feelings that feed into try and be the person she was before. And then you've also got Radu, who since the beginning of the fifth one to now is incredibly lonely, because it's either the second one or the third one where he's have this kind of, this inner turmoil between wanting to be with Michelle and to appease his mother. He even says to his mother, "I'm alone and I'm lonely," and she turns that to human emotion.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So his journey as well, his story arc, still quite sympathetic, where he's coming across evil, but it's simply because he's desperate not to be alone. And that's what I took from it.
Also, I don't think the series it's been too clear with as a fledgling who's under a master what you can and can't do involving the master, because there's the scene in this one where Radu's captured and Michelle clearly saves him against her will, so they never explained that aspect of the rules really clearly.
Yeah.
Well, this is Dr. Laszlo, who basically he was in the last one, who, like you see, you didn't know, and he comes across like an evil vampire, Dr. Van Helsing. He's experimenting in, him and Radu even have that exchange where he's saying, "I want to use the bloodstone for science," and even Radu goes, "I respect science, but it will never solve the mysteries of the bloodstone, and you'll never get what you want."
Yeah.
And I love that, and I love the fact that Michelle had sympathy a little bit with Radu throughout this one, and he wasn't the main villain. It was the Doctor who was the villain in this one. And right at the end, even though she sympathized, and you had that bonding experience where you had that young couple who were in Bucharest, and he fed on the girl and she fed on the man, and it was like she was finally gonna accept he was the master, she was the fledgling, and that they were going to be together. But then right at the end, I think out of desperation, because Radu was about to kill her.
Yeah.
Michelle, I can't let you kill her. She's helped me. She's innocent, and she ends up sacrificing Radu, and she ends up decapitating him. Well, I think she stabs him, and then it's her who decapitates him. But to make sure that he'll never return again, they don't just decapitate him; they burn his body.
Yeah, put his head on a pike and let it set in the sun, getting toasty.
Yes, which was an amazing scene and looked fantastic, but I still think his death in the third one was the best.
The tree? Yeah, I like the tree a lot.
My favorite thing about this one was how it tried to delve into the science of vampirism just a little bit without over-explaining anything.
Yeah, another thing about the journey of these films is that how, like you say, the depth and the relationship and the personal journeys and stories between Michelle and Radu, and then throughout it you've got all these side characters that add extra elements to the story, like you've just said, the science side of it. So what's your overall thought, Anthony, on the fourth one, Bloodstorm?
Yeah, I highly enjoyed it. This was a very surprising franchise. I really didn't know what to expect going into it, and coming out, and I'm like, why does this not get more love? And why isn't Radu not mentioned with some of the more famous cinematic boogeymen? Because he is up there.
I could not agree more. If not other boogeymen or well-known horror icons, at least up there with vampires. Like, you've got Nosferatu, you've got Dracula, you've got like different versions. You've got the Bela Lugosi Dracula. Then you've obviously the next one that I think everyone looks at is like the best vampire is Christopher Lee, and then you've also got, of course, you've got Gary Oldman. So you've got those three iconic actors in their versions of Dracula. You've got the two versions of Nosferatu. You've got vampire. You've got Queen of the Damned. You go that iconic Dust Till Dawn, the Lost Boys. David out of the Lost Boys is definitely an iconic vampire. And you've even got like
Fright Night.
Yeah, him out of Fright Night, and then you've also got even, I would say, Spike and Angel out of Buffy Vampire Slayer. I don't watch them, but the Twilight vampires. So you've got good vampires and bad vampires, but it's really surprising that Radu is never brought up in the conversation.
I know, it's weird, huh?
Which
5 films and he doesn't even get a blip of a radar.
And let's appreciate just how hard that role had to be on the actor's voice to constantly be in that deep, raspy voice the whole time.
I just think he's iconic. He's and even this photo here, when I look at his face, it gives me, I wonder if you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the way his face is, it makes me think that they get the inspiration for their vampires off Radu.
That makes sense, yeah.
Because their faces look very much like Radu's, I believe, in the movies, in the shows.
Yeah. Agreed.
I'm kind of wondering, because the fingers are that long because of the subspecies. Is it meant to be that the subspecies are like some parasite life form he found?
I don't know if it's because I don't know. Don't forget, his mother was a witch and his father is a vampire. So I don't know if it's a mixture of her witchcraft and the fact that the dad was a vampire, and that's how he's got his overall look.
I think that, in my opinion, my theory is he is what he is because once he was turned, his dad left him behind. His dad said, you're not gonna have a master to teach you the ways. You're gonna probably die as a dog. He didn't expect Radu to ever live. And Radu probably had to feed off the worst of the worst, animals, rats, and whatever. If you go back to films like Interview with a Vampire, when Lestat is rebuilding himself, he's just in the sewers and he looks like ass. Like, he does not look like the guy we saw high class, feeding off humans. So I think for Radu is more of like his journey, and he was turned into this uglier version of a vampire because he didn't have anybody to teach him any better. He was just doing what he could to survive. That's it. So that's sort of the empathy and sympathy you can give to Radu, because when we think of vampires, we think of 1992. We think of Gary Oldman, sharp looking, and then Winona Ryder or Lucy, with the sexiness of it all. Like this case, you have like I said, the fifth one, the girl that plays Ariel, gorgeous. But you can see in some sense that even both her and Ash are somewhat repulsed by how Radu looks. And so it's not really his fault per se. It's just that's what happened in his life when they left him behind. That was the punishment that the prince was going to give him. Is like, okay, you fucked with me the wrong way. Now you're going to be what you're going to be, and you're just going to end up whatever.
It's like he was born to be a monster.
Yeah. And he took it on. He actually accepts that he is who he is. Like, he doesn't care.
Yeah, because like I say, his mother was that witch, and his father was a vampire. So if you have the combination of the mother and him, he was going to be born monstrous. Where he was then sired by Helena. And then, of course, Helena then, he has a half brother, which is Stefan, who looks human, looks normal. So it's like one way and then the other way of, you know, how they've been created. So that would play on your mind as well, and hence why he's probably always felt alone, because he's the only one that looks like that in the world.
Yep. Yeah.
And he just wants to find his way to belong. But then as time's gone by, he's went from being this lonely, you know, innocent person to this person who turns evil out of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Michelle, who's like the innocent bystander in it all, who in the end sees downfall, which is what Helena said in the fifth one. I will be resurrected, and I will haunt you, and I will make you suffer till the end of your days, which is exactly what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
It's cool because when they did the fifth one, they went and they paid attention to every detail of every movie before that, and that's how they picked up their plot. And I did, it was a wonderful job.
Yeah, and like you said, it was more serious. It had a more serious tone. The acting for me was the best I've seen in any of them. Not that the acting's terrible in the other ones, but it was like they really worked hard to make this stand out.
Yeah,
and
I truly think that, at least from Anders and Denice's position, because they were the most consistent of the films, that they took the franchise seriously. They took the role seriously. Like, they really cared about the material, which I thought was great.
Yeah, and each one's been directed. And another thing I like about it, from all 6 movies in the franchise have been directed by the same director. So it's like his baby, his passion. So that's when Full Moon said that they were going to bring it back, part of this this deadly, that was it, the Deadly 10 initiative. So Subspecies 5 Blood Rise was announced in April 2019 as part of Full Moon's Deadly 10 initiative, with Hove and Duff as Radu Vladislas and Helena, a vampire queen that resembles Michelle. So I don't know what other films that's a part of their Deadly 10 initiative. I do know that they were doing 2 other Puppet Master films a part of it. But
there's where the fifth one ended, there's still enough backstory they could easily do another prequel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they could even do a prequel in between where he hasn't met Helena yet, because it said in the prequel centuries went by before he finally met up with her again. So what did he do in between that time? You know, they could have done, and like I say, they could even do a spin-off years down the line of Selena and Ash, because I believe at the end of
I think that would be probably the best move. Just because Anders is getting older, you can still have him apart as, Radu in there, but like
you could even bring him back as a
characters, because that'd be kind of cool, man. Like, like I said, the 2 that played Ariel and Ash did a really good job. So obviously Ariel's character is dead, but as you said, they brought Helena back as Michelle, so they could do the same with Ariel and just bring her back as a different version of her ancestor self. So,
and you could even do a story years down the line where Ash and Selena separate, and she's now this high-powered vampire queen, and he's reduced to nothing, but somehow he has to be brought back into her world. And you could always bring back Radu. Like, I was thinking of an idea like Dexter, the television series, where he's trying to fight his urges and he's got this little devil on his shoulder, and it could be Radu.
Yeah,
this invisible like shot of this invisible
somebody that haunts him constantly.
Yeah, and the fact it was his master, and he allowed him to die, and he maybe feels guilt-ridden about it.
Yeah.
And he becomes like he's conscious throughout the next line of films. That could have been a way to bring him back in flashback as like this ghost, like, well, maybe not a ghost, but like I say, this invisible conscience, like in Dexter, where he kept on saying his dead dad as like his voice in his head.
Yeah. The dark passenger.
Yes, I definitely think that could work. So we've talked about the films. Overall, Anthony, your overall thought on the franchise?
just very underrated. This series deserves so much more love. Just get past the fact that it's made by a studio that's known for low budget films, meet the films on their term, and I think you're going to have a pretty good time with them.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And DJ Anubis.
Yep. It's funny because when Anthony brought it up, like, why isn't this franchise talked about more? Whenever we think vampires, there's a great big catalog of vampire films and stuff out there, but this one never gets mentioned. Never.
Yeah.
And it should. It's a very well put together series, and the actors involved care about it. They put their heart and soul into it. So, like, I hopefully going forward, it does have a cult status, obviously, but I think that
Definitely.
it needs to be more recognized than it is.
It obviously has a cult enough status that they would bring it back in 2023 for a 5th installment.
Yeah.
So this is why I wanted to make this a part of my Taste of Blood, the month of the vampire, because it is definitely an underrated vampire series. It still has a special place in my heart. I even have a bigger appreciation for it since I went to Romania and I got to see some of the sites and places where this was filmed in the area, Bucharest. I just think the character of Radu is such an underrated vampire icon that he doesn't really get mentioned, which is criminal to me. Overall, the series does has its ups and downs, its good points and its bad points. But the one thing I love about Full Moon Studios, there might be a studio that does not have the budget of, say, Disney, Blumhouse, all of that jazz, any of the major. But the one thing I've noticed, they may never have the budget, but when it comes to story, they can tell a great story. And the fact that they mapped this story out over 6 films, and they had character development for the main 2 characters of Michelle and Radu, which lasted all films, is something to be appreciated of and applaud, because you can't even get that in the major Hollywood films.
Yep.
So great storytelling, amazing atmosphere, great looking movies despite the budget restraints. So I thoroughly enjoy this franchise. So let's get the ratings. So we'll start in order. So the 5th one, what would you rate this, DJ Anubis?
10 out of 10.
Anthony?
Probably 9.5 out of 10.
I'm going to go right to the top 10 out of 10 as well. Subspecies, 1991.
Oh, did you want to give Tony's? Because he gave you ratings for...
Yeah, I'm going to give all his right at the end.
Okay. For the first one, so we're on first one now. That one is actually my lowest score. That's 7 out of 10.
Right. Anthony?
I'll probably go with Anubis in a 7 out of 10.
Cool. The first one, because obviously we didn't have the prequel, I'll give it 8 out of 10 because I was blown away when I first saw it. So, Subspecies Bloodstone.
For me, 8 out of 10.
Anthony?
For me, 8.5 out of 10.
I'm going to give this 7 out of 10. Right. Bloodlust.
8 out of 10.
Anthony?
I think 8 out of 10 is fair too.
Right, I'm giving it the same as the second one, 7 out of 10. Bloodstorm. Oh no, sorry. Vampire Journals is next.
I didn't see it, so I can't read it.
Anthony?
7 out of 10.
See, I'll give that 8 out of 10 because I liked how it expanded the world and it added new vampires and leads into the first one. Now we'll talk about Bloodstorm.
9 out of 10.
Yeah, I was going to give it 9 out of 10 too.
Well, I'll give it the same as the fifth one, 10 out of 10, because it was the completion of an amazing story and character development. Now, Mr. Tony of the Dead, unfortunately, couldn't make it because, like I said earlier, he wasn't very well, but he did manage to see these movies, so it wouldn't be,
I'm looking at his scores, and I'm like, it's so Tony. He's just hiding. That's what it is. He's hiding.
Yes, he doesn't want to take the beating. But obviously, out of respect for Mr. Tony, because he did watch these movies and he did decide
did it kick me and screaming too.
Yes, I'm going to share his scores. So, Subspecies 1, he's give it 7 out of 10. Fair enough. Subspecies 2, 4.5 out of 10. Subspecies 3, 3 out of 10.
It just gets worse.
He did not watch. I do know he said to me he did not watch Vampire Chronicles. So the fourth one, which is just absolutely shocking, 2.5 out of 10.
I know.
And then the fifth one, which is the best in the series, he give it 7 out of 10. So he give the first and the second the same rating. So you've survived, Mr. Tony. You've survived that. You've at least give a couple.
That's okay. Here's the good news, because we've got our Ghouls at Midnight next week, and he's not going to like my review of that.
Oh, he really doesn't. You're saying he really isn't dodging any bullets here?
Yeah. It's like, that's crazy.
Right, Mr. Tony of the Dead. I'll let you off because you at least give 2 of the films 7 out of 10. Right, you've survived this one, Mr. Tony. Just.
I give Tony a 2.5 out of life.
I'll give Tony 3 out of 10 for this week. 3 out of 10. But anyway, Mr. DJ Anubis, what have you got coming on the Metal Tavern Radio?
Well, before I get into mine, your Taste of Blood series, is this the last one?
No,
I know you have the Lost Boys that's coming next Friday.
Yeah, and then on the Saturday we're doing Taste the Blood Part 2, which is 4 film reviews. We're doing Dusk Till Dawn, Let Me In, then we're doing John Carpenter's Vampires, and the last one is Queen of the Damned.
Okay. All right, so that's all right. So
that's Saturday the 26th.
I got something in the works that I want to do with you guys, but it'll have to be separate from You're Into the Darkness. But it's all dealing with vampire films. But
cool.
I'll get that after we get done talking. But so as far as like stuff that I actually have coming up, Ghouls at Midnight next week. Tony and I will be reviewing Leonard Part 6 with Bill Cosby. I'm not going to give you my opinion yet on it, but you kind of know where it's going to go. But we did switch to where when we make a pick of something, it's going to be on our channel. So this pick is his. It's going to be on his channel again next week. So he can try to color it up all he wants with his poor thumbnail, and then I'll just rip it apart. Other than that, though, on Halloween, I'm going to try and make your stream for Lost Boys. It's on Friday the 25th at 8.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to make that.
It's at 5 p.m.
My time or your time?
Day's time. He's in San Diego, so it'll be 1 p.m. in the morning.
I think it's 8 o'clock my time. I think because he's over there in the West Coast.
It's going to be 1 o'clock in the morning for me. I'm going to really go out for this one.
Yep, it's 8 o'clock my time. So
if Neko's free, I don't
unfortunately, her gear is packed away. I didn't do it on purpose, but she's just been so busy with everything else that like I can't really get her in with stuff. So once we get moved, everything will be set back up. So I will try and make that with the Lost Boys. Halloween day, during the day, I'm going to be interviewing author Rick Myers. So I'll have that up before the day's out on that. And then that evening, we will be doing a review for Lake Mungo, a live stream for Halloween night. And I know Mr. Jordan will be there with me to do that, as well as Tony and Crypt. I think some other people we've got going on. I know, Kevin, you're going to be sending in a video. You're going to watch it. Did you watch it already?
No, I'm off Monday. I'm going to do it Monday.
That's when you're going to do it? Okay. So yeah, I'm going to be curious.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'll watch it at some point, yeah.
So yeah, we're going to be doing a live stream. It's a very underrated ghost story movie, documentary, if you want to call it that. And so we should have a lot of fun with that. So that's what we're doing there. And outside that, I don't have too much more going on, just because, except for this thing I want to do on the side for you guys. But outside of that, not a whole lot going on.
Cool. Mr. Anthony Jordan, what's coming to your channel?
Well, I'm trying to finish my live stream of Until Dawn before Halloween. I think I can do that in another 2 or 3 videos, so I'll probably do maybe another hour stream tonight. I'm not sure yet. Other than that, like I said, Halloween gonna be on Discuss the Movie with Anubis, and I have added 2 more reviews to the roster for this month. The new Salem Lot, which is set to premiere next week, and Late Night with the Devil, which, fittingly enough, I set to premiere October 31st at midnight.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah,
because that film needs a lot of love. Because I don't hear many people talking about that either. And I love David Del Monchian, who is the lead in that.
I just hope it leads to him getting more starring roles.
Well, I mentioned during when I did my review of The Last Voyage of the Demeter how he was like a side character that really had a strong role in that. And, you know, he had a strong role in, he was only in it for a small bit, but The Dark Knight, when he was that obsessed, crazy person who was under the, you know, control from the Joker. I said he's like a young William Dafoe. Who I believe is somebody that any role you give him, he could do wonders in. He just needs to be given more leading roles to showcase how good an actor he truly is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with that said, this has been another Into the Darkness franchise discussion, Subspecies. Next month, we will be talking about the Candyman franchise, which I'm very much looking forward to. But, you know, please like, share, and subscribe to my 2 friends, Mr. DJ Anubis of the Metal Tavern Radio and Mr. Anthony Jordan of Anthony Jordan's Movie and Gaming. But like I always say, keep loving your movies, keep on loving all things entertainment, and also keep loving all things
werewolves.
Piss off. That's next year. Until next year, it's all about the motherfucking vampires.